You are listening to Novel Nest Audio. Episode 5, Shadows That Watch in Silence. A diary whispers of forgotten truths. Power tempts, but every step forward tightens unseen threads. Some dangers don't strike, they simply observe. The journey continues. Chapter 21. A familiar script from another lifetime. For a heartbeat, Klein almost believed he had returned to the world he once knew. The glow of the brass-framed gas lamp and the scent of freshly ground coffee quickly reminded him of his true surroundings. The illusion shattered, but what remained in his hands made his pulse race even harder. The handwriting before him did not belong to this era. Simplified Chinese. Characters that should not exist in this world. If the emperor had written them, then there was only one explanation. The ruler of this age had once walked the same impossible path as him. The first entry described a reckless experiment beneath a clear sky. It spoke of a wretched being lost in endless storms, able to brush against reality only during each full moon. Yet that being could not send its cries across the divide. The writer claimed destiny had favored him with this discovery. Then the tone shifted. Decades had slipped by like the snap of fingers. Even his own native language felt distant now. His past seemed less like memory and more like a fading dream. Other entries wandered between celebration and frustration. A magnificent lady at a New Year's gathering, anger toward incompetent diplomats, and regret he should have chosen a different path. Apprentice, seer, perhaps even bandit, but the opportunity was gone forever. One passage struck Klein deeply. The emperor warned that potions were not about forcefully seizing power. They had to be digested. One must act in accordance with the potion's name. The title was not symbolic, it was the key itself. Klein's heartbeat thundered. Acting, digesting. Had he just uncovered the secret behind advancing safely as a beyonder? The discovery felt priceless. The diary darkened again. An alliance had formed against the emperor. Powers from the north, east, and south united. He mocked their numbers. He hinted that they had forgotten who he truly was. Confidence dripped from every line. There was mention of a lost ship searching for a land abandoned by the gods. Communication had ceased. He considered inventing wireless transmission to overcome storms. Even amid danger, he mused about youth and beauty. Questions churned in Klein's mind. Who was that being trapped in storms? Where was that forsaken land? What exactly did acting demand of him? He longed to read the entire diary from beginning to end. Klein? Old Neil's voice pulled him back. Klein forced a laugh and claimed he had been trying to decipher something unique. He concealed his turmoil carefully. Old Neil chuckled. Youth often believed itself special, he said. Klein handed back the pages after confirming he had missed nothing. Trying to sound casual, he asked if they were more. Old Neil shook his head. Supernatural incidents were rare. Extraordinary creatures were fading from the continent. Dragons, giants, elves reduced to stories. Without them, potions dwindled, and so did beyonders. Klein smiled suddenly. He suggests forming a society to protect dragons and giants. Perhaps we should establish a protection association for them. Old Neil laughs at the idea. Why limit it to just those two? We ought to safeguard all fantastic beasts. Klein shakes his head in mock seriousness. And what about magical plants? They deserve protection too. They speak at the same time, laughter breaking between them. Then let's call it the Fantastic Organisms Protection Association. Their shared humor dissolved the lingering stiffness between them. For a moment, the world felt lighter. Old Neil reviewed Klein's requisition form. He asked what type of ammunition was needed. For a revolver. Old Neil smirked knowingly. As a gentleman, you wouldn't want anything bulging awkwardly at your waist. An armpit holster will do nicely.
Klein asked if approval was required. Old Neil dismissed the concern, calling it merely an accessory item. He instructed Klein to repeat the phrase. While Old Neil disappeared behind an iron door, Klein's eyes returned to the diary. To others, it was meaningless scrap. To him, it was treasure beyond measure. He resolved to obtain more. Old Neil returned carrying supplies: 10 demon-hunting bullets, 30 revolver rounds, an ox-hide armpit holster, and a special operations badge. The standard bullets gleamed yellow in neat rows. The demon-hunting rounds shimmered silver, engraved with intricate patterns and a sacred emblem beneath a red moon. The badge bore crossed swords and a crown. Klein studies the badge thoughtfully. It's a pity it's not a Nighthawk's insignia. Old Neil urged him to try the holster instead. After some effort, Klein secured it beneath his left arm and put his jacket back on. Old Neil nodded with satisfaction. They exchanged a few more casual words. As Klein walked away, he suddenly slapped his forehead. He had forgotten to ask about the higher sequences and potions, all because of the diary. Descending the stairs, he encountered a familiar figure. Tight pants, a white shirt untucked, the air of a romantic poet. "Good afternoon," the young man greets him first. "I suppose introductions aren't necessary," Klein responds with humor. The man extends his hand. "Leonard Mitchell, Sequence 8, Midnight Poet." Klein shakes his hand. "You remember me that clearly?" Leonard's green eyes deepen slightly. "You give off a rather unusual impression." Klein shrugs lightly. "I don't believe I'm particularly remarkable." Leonard answers calmly. "You survived that incident without immediate protection. That alone makes you different." He gestures ahead, explaining he must relieve the captain. They part with brief farewells. At the stairwell's end, Leonard pauses. Golden sunset light stretched across the stone floor. He turns his head slightly. "Did you sense anything unusual?" Silence lingers for a breath. Then a faint voice replies from nowhere. "No, there's nothing extraordinary about him." And just like that, the moment dissolved into evening light. Mysteries remained hidden beneath ordinary appearances. The fading sun carried away questions no one dared to answer.
Chapter 22. The First Step into the Pathway. After climbing the stairs back to the reception hall, Klein prepared to say goodbye. Before he could remove his hat, Roseanne informed him that the captain had granted him time. He was to report on Monday and use the days before that to settle his family matters. The unexpected consideration left him quietly grateful. He had planned to rise early and visit Tingen University. He intended to formally withdraw from the interview process. The opportunity had come through his professor's recommendation, and courtesy demanded proper closure. In a world without convenient telephones, traveling there in person was the most practical choice. Just as he was about to bid farewell, a thought struck him. He glanced around and lowered his voice. "Roseanne, do you know what the starting point of the church's complete sequence is?" Her eyes widened in shock. "You're thinking of becoming a beyonder?" Klein felt exposed but did not deny it. Once you know such powers exist, it's hard to not feel curious or drawn toward them. Roseanne reacted strongly, her hands moving as she spoke. "Do you understand how dangerous that path is? The enemy of yonder isn't just cultists or dark sorcerers, it's themselves. People lose control every year. Some even sacrifice their lives. Have you thought about your family?" Without pausing, she painted a safer future. A stable civilian role, steady salary increases, savings enough to rent a comfortable home and build a happy family. Klein quickly stopped her before she strayed too far. "I only want to understand the basics for now." Roseanne lowered her gaze, her voice softening. "Because of what happened to my father, I get emotional about these things, but I truly respect anyone willing to become a Nighthawk." Klein reassured her quietly. She blinked, then continued with renewed seriousness.
My father once said that becoming stronger doesn't eliminate hidden dangers, it invites worse ones. When facing the unknown, the only outcomes are madness or death. She admitted he sacrificed himself shortly after saying those words, yet she insisted her life was fine now. Fear, she said, was only natural. Regaining her composure, Roseanne began explaining what she knew. Extraordinary creatures were disappearing, high sequences were increasingly rare. In a city of hundreds of thousands, there were only about 30 Beyonders, and most were at sequence 9. She straightened proudly as she delivered the answer Klein had been waiting for. The starting sequence of our church's complete pathway is sequence 9, Sleepless. A sleepless required little rest, only a few hours during the day. They could see clearly in darkness. As night deepened, their physical strength, intuition, and mental clarity grew sharper. Still, they relied on special bullets and equipment against monsters beyond normal means. Roseanne added that her father had once been a sleepless. After that came sequence 8, Midnight Poet. Above it stood sequence 7, Nightmare. Klein's mind immediately recalled a familiar experience. Captain? Roseanne stared at him, astonished. You know about that? Klein explained quietly that the captain had once entered his dream. Understanding dawned on her face. She revealed that only 2 sequence 7 Beyonders served in Tingen's church. The captain was likely one of them. Even in a grand city like Backland, such a rank commanded respect. Klein acknowledged Dunn's strength with a faint smile. Roseanne beamed with pride. Yet when asked about higher sequences, she admitted ignorance. Klein then inquired about other starting sequences outside the complete pathway. Sleepless matched expectations, but it was not what he truly desired. He sought knowledge, a pathway that might help him understand his transmigration. Roseanne admitted she knew little in that regard. However, she recalled something old Neil had mentioned. His sequence 9 title. It's also the name of the potion formula, Mystery Prior. The name resonated deeply with Klein. It sounded far closer to the direction he wanted. Roseanne suddenly brightened, remembering another detail. I also know the name of a sequence 7 from an incomplete pathway, Spirit Medium. Klein reacted instinctively. Madame Daly? Roseanne stared at him yet again. How do you know that too? Klein admitted he had met her. Roseanne sighed with envy. If I could become a spirit medium like her, maybe I'd consider becoming a Beyonder. Well, at least for 10 minutes. Klein agreed playfully, exaggerating his admiration. Their conversation drifted into light chatter until no new information emerged. He tipped his hat and departed. Halfway down the stairs, he suddenly stopped. His hand pressed against the notes tucked inside his inner pocket. He withdrew 12 gold-pound notes and gripped them tightly. A slow smile spread across his face. According to the customs of his homeland, good fortune demanded celebration. Tonight he would treat Melissa. And for the first time since stepping onto this path, the future felt just a little bit brighter.
Chapter 23. The Gentleman's Sidearm. A warm, damp breeze brushed against Klein's face as he walked along Zoutland Street. Only then did he realize a troubling detail. He had 3 pence in loose change. The carriage fare home required 4. Handing over a full gold pound for such a trivial ride felt painfully excessive. He briefly considered riding part of the distance and walking the rest, but that thought quickly died. He was carrying 12 pounds, a fortune, and walking alone would be reckless. He had deliberately left his revolver behind earlier, wary of attracting attention. If danger struck again like it had with Welch, he would have no means to defend himself. The idea left a chill beneath the humid air. Perhaps a nearby bank could provide change, but the processing fee was outrageous. Even imagining the deduction made his heart ache. No, that was unacceptable. Then his gaze landed on a clothing shop. A simple solution emerged. Buy something practical, something he would need anyway, and receive proper change in return.
A suit would take time to fit. Benson would be better at bargaining. But a cane, a gentleman's cane, could serve both elegance and defense. With a new sense of purpose, he entered Wilker Clothing and Hats. Rows of formal attire lined the walls. Shoes gleamed behind glass. A red-vested salesperson approached politely. "Sir, how may I assist you?" Klein answered without hesitation. "A cane, something sturdy, preferably heavier." The salesperson led him to a selection in the corner. One cane, inlaid with gold and crafted from ironheart wood, was presented first. Its price was announced confidently, over 11 soldi. The sum made Klein inwardly recoil, yet his face remained calm. He tested the cane's weight, swung it once, and shook his head. "It's too heavy." Several alternatives followed: walnut, ebony with silver inlay, and white wood. Each was demonstrated with rehearsed professionalism. Klein examined them carefully, gauging weight and hardness. He chose the ebony cane with silver inlay. It was solid, balanced, and, most importantly, the least expensive of the suitable options. Klein declared firmly, "I'll take this one." At the counter, he reluctantly extended a gold pound note. The words slipped out before he could stop them. "Is there any chance of a discount?" The staff declined politely. Handcrafted goods, they insisted. No reductions without the owner present. Klein accepted the answer and completed the purchase. While waiting for change, he stepped back and gave the cane a few experimental swings. The heavy whistle of air slicing beneath the arc sounded impressive, too impressive. When he glanced forward again, both employees had retreated. The cashier hovered near a double-barreled shotgun mounted behind the counter. In this kingdom, firearms were regulated, but self-defense was common enough. Klein's mouth twitched. "Excellent craftsmanship. It swings beautifully." Realizing he posed no threat, the cashier cautiously handed over the change. Klein inspected the notes and coins carefully, checking their authenticity against the light. Satisfied, he tipped his hat and left. He spared 6 pence on short-distance carriages and transfers to ensure a safe return. Once inside, he locked the door. He counted his remaining 11 pounds and 12 soldi 3 times before storing them securely. Then he retrieved the bronze revolver. 5 brass bullets dropped onto the table as he replaced them with silver demon-hunting rounds. He left one chamber empty, precaution against misfire. The cylinder snapped shut with a crisp click. He holstered the weapon beneath his left arm. Again and again he practiced drawing it, unbuckling, aiming. He continued until his arms ached and sunset crept through the windows. Only then did he relax and change back into ordinary clothes. Footsteps echoed outside. A key turned. Melissa entered quietly. Her eyes flicked towards the cold stove, disappointment flickering briefly. "I'll reheat yesterday's food. Benson should be home tomorrow." Klein leaned casually against the desk, hands in his pockets. "No, let's dine out tonight." Melissa blinked. "Eat out?" Klein suggested the Silver Crown restaurant. He explained it was to celebrate his new employment. "But isn't your university interview tomorrow?" Klein shook his head slightly. "I accepted a different position." He withdrew the neatly stacked notes. Melissa's eyes widened at the sight of gold and soldi. What kind of job pays like that? Klein chose his words carefully. "A security company. They collect and safeguard ancient relics. I'll serve as a consultant. £3 a week, 5-year contract." Melissa studied him. "Were you troubled by this decision last night?" He nodded. Though academia is respectable, this suited him better. Melissa hesitated before asking why he had received such a large advance. "Because we'll need to move, somewhere with more space, and a bathroom of our own." Melissa froze. Then she spoke quickly, almost flustered. "We're already fortunate. Remember Jenny's family? After her father was injured, all 5 of them share one cramped room. Compared to that, we're blessed. Don't spend recklessly. I even like Mrs. Smearon's bakery." Klein's carefully prepared moment of triumph dissolved instantly. This was not the reaction he had imagined. Yet beneath the surprise lingered something warmer than pride. In the small, modest apartment, gratitude outweighed ambition. And for tonight, that was enough.
Chapter 24. Counting Every Coin. Golden evening light filtered through the window as Klein met Melissa's steady gaze. Every clever line he had prepared dissolved in that moment. He cleared his throat and searched desperately for something persuasive. He argued that entertaining future colleagues in their cramped apartment would be embarrassing. What would happen when he and Benson married? Would they still be sharing bunk beds like students? Surely circumstances had to match income. Melissa responded without hesitation. "Neither of you are engaged. We can wait and save more first." Klein grasped at broader principles. "If I earn £3 a week, I should live like someone who earns £3 a week." In truth, he was accustomed to shared housing, but he also knew how inconvenient it was for a young woman, and in the future, he might need privacy for matters far stranger than ordinary life. Before Melissa could counter again, he softened his tone. He assured her he wasn't seeking a grand bungalow, just a modest terrace, somewhere with a private bathroom, somewhere near familiar streets and beloved bakeries. To lighten the mood, he began mimicking Benson's likely reaction if they moved without warning. He exaggerated shock and disbelief. Melissa couldn't help smiling, dimples appearing at the corners of her cheeks. She retaliated by mocking their miserly landlord, Mr. Frankie. The image of Benson being stopped at the door for unpaid keys made them both laugh. For a moment, the tension eased. Then Melissa mentioned her classmate, Selena. Selena's older brother was a lawyer, earning nearly the same wage Klein now did. Yet he and his fiancée had delayed marriage for years, carefully saving for stability. Melissa's lesson was clear. Unexpected things happen. What if your company closes? What if circumstances change? We need savings. Klein attempted reassurance. He mentioned government connections. Melissa countered with political uncertainty and shifting administrations. He could only shake his head in amused defeat. Finally, he raised his hands. "All right, then we'll celebrate modestly." He suggested reheating leftovers and buying small additions from hawkers: pan-fried fish, black pepper beef, butter, and a cup of malt beer. A humble celebration, but still a celebration. He mentally added the costs and handed Melissa 2 one-solely notes. She accepted without protest. Before she left, he called after her again. "Use what remains to buy some fruit." He stepped forward and pressed his remaining copper coins into her palm. "And reward yourself with a small lemon cake." Melissa blinked in surprise. After a brief pause, she nodded. Then she hurried down the stairwell. The next day, a river divided the land beneath fresh air and towering trees. Cane in one hand and revolver hidden beneath his coat, Klein paid for a carriage ride to Tingen University. He walked along shaded paths towards the administrative building. Rowing teams moved rhythmically along the Koi River, their chants carried across the water. For a moment, Klein simply watched. Summer break would soon scatter them all. After registering his visit, he knocked on a half-closed office door. Inside sat a middle-aged instructor in formal attire. "There's still an hour before interviews begin." Klein removed his hat. "I've come to withdraw. I have already accepted employment." The instructor congratulated him warmly and promised to inform the relevant professors. They shook hands. Then a voice called from behind. "Moretti, you found another position." Klein turned to see his mentor, Senior Associate Professor Cohen. Beside him stood Mr. Azek, the history lecturer with bronze skin and weary eyes. "Good afternoon, mentor, Mr. Azek." Cohen asked about the job. Klein repeated his prepared explanation: security company, ancient relics, consultant, £3 a week. He added that he preferred exploring history to merely summarizing it. Cohen nodded thoughtfully. He appreciated Klein's courtesy in coming personally rather than disappearing. Azek suddenly spoke. "Do you know what happened to Welch and Naya? The papers claim burglars killed them." The news unsettled Klein. Armed burglary? So the case had already reached the newspapers. He chose his words carefully. I only know that Welch obtained a diary from the Fourth Epoch, something tied to the Antigonus family of the Solomon Empire. I helped interpret it briefly. The police questioned me 2 days ago. Cohen muttered thoughtfully about the Fourth Epoch. Isaac's expression shifted. For a brief instant, his gaze seemed distant. Antigonus, he said. It sounds familiar. Why can't I remember? His fingers pressed lightly against his temple. The air between them grew heavy with something unspoken, and beneath the quiet campus afternoon, another thread of mystery tightened unseen.
Chapter 25. Beneath the Cathedral's Shadow. Isaac murmured the unfamiliar name under his breath, glancing instinctively toward Senior Associate Professor Cohen for help. Cohen shook his head at once. He had no memory of it either. Isaac gave a faint, self-mocking laugh, brushing the matter aside. Klein, unwilling to let the thread vanish so easily, leaned forward slightly. If either of you recall anything about the Fourth Epoch or that name, please write to me. Cohen agreed readily, clearly pleased by Klein's courtesy. Isaac asked if his address remained unchanged. Klein explained he would soon relocate and promised to inform them. As the conversation drew to a close, Klein noticed the newspaper in Isaac's hand. He hesitated, then asked about Welsh and Naya. Before Isaac could reply, Cohen snapped open his pocket watch. Time was short. Isaac handed the newspaper over instead. With a few final words, the two scholars departed for their meeting. Outside the building, Klein unfolded the paper beneath the afternoon sun. The headline caught his eye. Tingen Morning Post. He flipped swiftly to the news section. The report described a brutal armed burglary. Gold, jewelry, and cash had been taken. The victims had been killed without hesitation. But the police claimed the principal culprit had already been captured. Klein nodded faintly. The truth had been sealed away. The official story would satisfy the public. He continued walking along the boulevard, idly scanning other columns. Then suddenly, the fine hairs at the back of his neck prickled. It was unmistakable, the sensation of being watched, observed. He resisted the urge to look around wildly. Instead, he slowed his steps, lowered the paper, turned casually as though admiring the riverside scenery. Trees, students, open grass, no obvious pursuer. Yet the feeling persisted. His pulse quickened. He raised the newspaper halfway, masking his expression. His grip tightened around the cane. His mind measured the distance to his concealed revolver. 1 step, 2, 3. No attack came, no shadow lunged, but the unseen gaze remained. At the carriage stand, he abandoned thoughts of heading home. He would not risk leading danger to his apartment, nor would he rush directly to his colleagues and expose them. Instead, Champagne Street. He paid 6 pence, boarding quickly. Only when the carriage doors shut did the sensation fade. He exhaled slowly. But the relief did not last. The moment he stepped down at Champagne Street, the invisible attention returned. Acting unconcerned, he walked not toward Zotland Street, but along a different path, past quiet streets, toward a white plaza. Before him rose St. Selina Cathedral, the towering headquarters of the Church of the Evernight Goddess in Tingen. Its architecture loomed in dark Gothic lines, a tall black clock tower, crimson and deep blue stained windows, light filtering in like fragments of moonlight. He entered calmly. As a believer attending Mass on his day off, he drew no suspicion. The moment he crossed into the prayer hall, the feeling vanished. Colored light shimmered across the darkness. Behind the altar, circular openings allowed sunlight to pierce the gloom like distant stars. The bishop's gentle sermon echoed through the hall. Klein removed his hat, placed it on his lap with the newspaper, folded his hands, lowered his head. The words of the sermon washed over him. For a moment his racing thoughts quieted. The tension eased beneath sacred silence. When Mass concluded and the confessional opened, he rose and joined the line. 20 minutes later, he stepped inside. Darkness enclosed him. The bishop's voice sounded softly from behind the wooden screen. "My child, what burdens your heart?" Klein withdrew his special operations badge and passed it through the opening. "Someone is following me. I need to see Dunn Smith." A pause. Then instructions. "Turn right after leaving. Walk to the end. There is a concealed door. Someone will guide you." Klein retrieved his badge, pressed his hat briefly to his chest, then exited. He turned right, moved along the side, found the hidden entrance within the wall. He slipped inside. The door shut silently behind him. Gas lamps flickered. A middle-aged priest in black robes approached. "What is it?" Klein displayed the badge again and repeated his warning. The priest asked nothing further. He turned and began walking. Hat in hand, cane steady, Klein followed into the cathedral's hidden depths. Beyond prayer and stained glass, beyond sermons and sacred light, the true guardians of the night awaited.
Some questions fade into silence. Others wait patiently in the dark. And sometimes what goes unseen is far closer than we think.